A very good evening to my friends. Myself is Dr. Nesy, a philosophy teacher of the past. For 34 years, I started my career in Women's College, Government Women's College Department of Philosophy, and I retired from Department of Philosophy, University of Kerala, Karivattam. Even though I am retired, I have got two assignments. One is I am a NAC peer team member and I visit colleges for NAC accreditation. And the second is I am a governor nominee to the syndicate of Sri Shankaracharya University of Sanskrit, Kaladi. In this evening, I am very happy to meet you and talk to you on the topic ethics in decision making. This is a very simple topic. As the name itself shows, decision making is a thing that everybody is familiar with. Nothing unknown, nothing unfamiliar to us. Every day, every moment of our life we make decisions. And the ethics in decision making is another simple topic, because ethics is mostly unknown to people, or even if they know it, they do not practice it. They think that it is not worthy to be practiced. Ethics is not so important, and that is why I thought that this topic is to be brought to your attention, because you are the budding decision makers. You are the decision makers of the future. So, my request is, have a humble thought on the ethical principles that I am highlighting to you when you are in a position to take decisions, or when you are in a position to judge the conclusions of problems that you are facing, or your community is facing, or the society is facing. So, that is about my topic, and this topic I will present to you in simple terms. The first point that I want to set the topic, namely the context. I would like to tell you that there is a need for, because there is a context in which we have to think of ethical principles applied in the process of decision making. So, that is what I mean by the context. Some problems are there which very well demand the application of ethical principles in their concluding points, or in arriving at conclusions. So, the context in which the context I am going to tell you is not the ordinary. Of course, ordinary situations are also there, but I want to introduce to you certain contexts where ethical principles are very much needed. And the second point is decision making. So, I just want to introduce what is meant by decision making and what are the different aspects of decision making. And the third point I want to highlight to you is introduce the science of ethics to you. The philosophy students may be introduced to that, but it is a topic to be introduced or to be known by all people alike, irrespective of disciplines. It is a transdisciplinary subject, and the values that are prescribed, that are advocated in the science of ethics, that are to be made known to the public as well, to the common people as well. And the last point is, what is the relevance of ethics in decision making, and what is the value of ethical principles applied in the context of making decisions. So, this is the structure of my lecture, and I would like to invite you to have a close listening. You can read that in the slides, and then you can, if you can understand something, I am satisfied. So, the context, we live in a world of bewildering possibilities. We know our society, our country, our life itself has got possibilities in front of us. It's not, we are not traveling to a single track, we have got different tracks that we can follow. The two possibilities, for example, possibility of living in a better world than what is recently known. We can live in a better world, better future, happy life. Means and resources are available at our disposal. So, we have all the means and resources for creating a better world, a happy world, okay? A better society, a better country, to build a more satisfying life than what we have. We can create a society without poor people, without illiteracy, without sick people, isn't it? So, we have all the resources with us. So, we can, that is one of the possibilities, or possibility that we may come to live in a world more dangerous, regimented and cruel, marked by uneasiness, domestic strife, radioactive gases and so on, that may make civilization almost impossible. So, this is another possibility that is glaringly looking at us. We as a society, as an advanced society, is open to these two possibilities. We can create a better society with all our resources, at the same time we can create a cruel and unhappy society with the resources at our disposal. Now, we are faced with an uncertain future. The future is not certain for us. So, let me begin with the 20th century. 20th century dawned with marked faith, confidence and optimism. So, these were the watchwords of 20th century when it began from 1901 onwards. People have got great faith in the expanding scenario of education, because education was open to all, thrown open to all, anybody can acquire education, English education even. So, they have got great faith in education and great confidence in science, because the developments and achievements in science started with 20th century. It started with 19th century and accelerated in the 20th century, that it would be able to solve rather quickly most of our problems. So, we were so confident, our scientists, our policy makers, our leaders were so confident that we can eradicate poverty from the world, diseases from the world, because science was developing, developments in science and technology was happening. And we are so optimistic about democracy, because the type of government established in 20th century is democracy. It is the older forms of aristocracy, dictatorship, slavery and all that was removed, and democracy was established in almost all parts of the world, and people were very optimistic that our world will be a brighter one, we will live in a brighter society. The assumption was that accumulate more and more knowledge and skill in as many fields as possible, a good life naturally follow. This was the assumption, this was the belief of all the people, namely leaders, the policy makers, scientists and all. They believed that if we accumulate more and more knowledge through education, to scientific developments, to democratic forms of government, then the result naturally will be a good form of life. There is no objection for that, that is what they believed. Education, science, democracy, human ingenuity and a little time, we will usher in a better world. This was the hope of the 20th century when it began. But what happened at the end? See, today optimism has given way to pessimism. We are not so certain about our progress and better future. A vague uneasiness and even fear mark our attitudes, moods and outlooks. So, this is the nature of society that in which we are living. We are not so sure as to whether future will be a brighter one, a happy one, without any poor people, without any diseased people. No, we are not sure, because the medical science has advanced so fast. It has eradicated diseases, but so many diseases already have come into existence. So, we were living in an uncertain future. Now, what is the reasons for that? Why our future is uncertain? See, rapid social changes. from a society rural and simple. Earlier we were a rural society, namely agricultural society. It was not industrialized. You know, have heard of the industrial revolution and all. So, and we began or we developed into what is called a highly industrialized machine civilization. Now, our civilization can be termed as is highly industrialized, it is mechanical civilization, marked by interdependence and impersonal relationships. So, this is the characteristic of our civilization. It is interdependence and impersonal relationship. Now, you might know the meaning of impersonal relations. I am not going to details because lack of time. We are now a society which is mechanically efficient to the extent of controlling even life and nature. We are proud of the fact that we can control so many diseases, so many external forces we can control. We are very proud of our achievements. The release of new energy for good and or bad is yet to be known. So, a lot of energy is at our disposal, but what is the use, whether it is for good or bad, that is something uncertain, and we have utterly failed to unite mankind, the mind of human beings. So, we know the human being cannot be united, cannot stand united at this point of time. Then war experiences. The story of 2 world wars and the Cold Wars apart. So, that was the mark of 20th century, leave it. We have even now new experience of war and war threats of various kinds. Even now in our society, it is not the war between different countries are there. It is not physical war, but so many wars of different kinds are available to us. The point is, I am not going to discuss war and the war between countries and so on, but my point is different. The point is, war reveal even strengthen some noble virtues such as courage and the willingness to make sacrifices, which are praised and often rewarded. You know, when two wars are between two countries are fought, one country wins and the other country fails naturally, and when the one country it rewards its soldiers for their achievements because they have won the war, isn't it? They are praised, they are rewarded, they are awarded with awards, government, national government awards and like Paramavira Chakra and all, we are familiar with that. And we praise that they are known for their virtues of courage. Our soldiers are courageous, we praise them, and at the same time they are willing to make sacrifices for their motherland, we all praise them. But see, there is another side. At the same time, war teaches a generation of persons to hate, to kill and applaud the destruction of life and property so long as it is not our own. So, this side we never take notice of, isn't it? So, the affected people, a generation of people are taught to hate, they are taught to kill, and also we applaud the destruction of life and property so long as it is not our own, it is the other person's property. So, what is there? Let us enjoy, that is our attitude. So, this is the net result of war and war happenings. Yes, war has a demoralizing effect on personal and public standards. This is the net result of war. Then, the growth of mass media and communication, the radio, newspaper and television, not to mention the newer ones. Purposefully I referred to the older ones, you are familiar with the newer ones. They are not only excellent means of communication and entertainment, but also can be great instruments for good or evil. We all know that. Simply put, they tend to dull man's critical faculties, reinforce and stimulate non-rational interests and drives, and keep man immature. So, this is the net result of what is called the media and communication, what is that explosion. What is that? They dull man's critical faculties. We do not know how to criticize. Of course, we know how to criticize, but not constructively. It is not healthy criticism. Okay? These media, what is that, affectedness has dulled our intellect, so that we cannot critically constructively criticize. Reinforce, stimulate a non-rational interests and drives. So, our interests and drives become what is called a non-rational, irrational often. They are not rationally controlled, they are not become justifiable drives. So, we are subjected to irrational and emotions and keep man immature. So, they do not allow us to grow to the level of maturity. So, that is the drawback of our mass media and communication. Then see what is the problem of development. This is another again a old story. In 1920, the richest 20% of world's population had income 30 times greater than the poorest 20%. By 1990, the richest 20% were getting 60 times more. What is the result? The implications are obvious. The poor became poorer and the rich became richer. Growing disparity in the north south has assumed various dimensions. It is not simply in the economic terms. The poor became poorer and the rich became richer, not on the monetary basis only. See what happens? The growth of literacy, life expectancy, environment degradation, violation of human rights. So, these are the areas in which this disparity finds its expression. So, development problem finds its expression in various other areas like literacy, health, life expectancy, environment degradation, violation of human rights and so on. So, this is the problem of development that we are all subjected to. Then scientific advancements. So, we know scientific advancements have contributed to almost every aspect of human life, in farming and manufacturing, in health and hygiene, to name a few. But there are also unhappy aspects of the achievements. The risk of nuclear war, the threat of pollution, the depletion of natural resources and so on. See, with the help of scientific knowledge and technological advancement, we have the power to affect the natural world. We can influence, manipulate and affect the world around us, the natural environment. But what we have done? But instead of turning the dross into gold, we have learned to turn oceans into sewers. Okay? This is what we have done. But we have the capacity to do the otherwise. We can produce gold out of the sewers, but we did not do that. To live at the expense of our surroundings, we have exploited our environment, neighbors and fellow men. In short, the development of science and its implications have created more problems than it solved. That is the net conclusion that we can come to, namely science and technology have created so many advancements, but the problems it has created is more than the achievements. Then technology, a a division of science, is responsible for man's longer, richer and more comfortable lives. We all enjoy that. The astonishing and life-changing contributions apart, technology regards everything as potential resources or standing reserves to be used later. So, this is the assumption of technology, basic assumption of technology. Technology is a blessing, but at the same time it assumes that, for example, forest is only a timber resource. What is called the forest is only valuable for timber, cutting timber, and land is a resource for building industry. This is what technologists will say. Land is land, it is for building industry, that is all. Then what is a human being? He is only a consumer. Human being is a consumer for the technology. So, this is the point where we have to think into, we have to consider. A decade after the explosion of the first atom bomb, in 1945 atom bomb was dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. There is one Stinson who wrote it. The atom has within it a greater potential to constructive use for the enrichment of life. It has also a larger capability for devastation of civilizations through the spreading of death than all other destructive methods previously discovered. Okay? So, it is a double-edged sword. The atomic energy is a double-edged sword. Then see, in this context we can mention the scientists, what is applied to the scientists. See, not more than 1% of the millions of people engaged in the atomic project, for example, not we can generally speak of scientists, knew or even guessed the nature of the work they were engaged. So, almost 1,000,000 people worked in the project, the atomic project for the Second World War, that was used in the Second World War. But see, none of them knew or even they guessed what was they doing, why, what was their energy they are spending, their time they are spending, their knowledge they are spending, they did not even know that. See, the scientist is separated from the knowledge of the use to which his energy is being devoted. Scientist is spending his time and energy to produce knowledge, but what is the use to which that knowledge is put to, whether it is used to destroy Hiroshima or not, that the scientist is never know, he cannot even guess of that. He becomes a cog in the great machine or a part of an organized evil without having aware of the same. Unknowingly he is contributing to the devastation of the Hiroshima, for example, you know. So, he does not know it because he is forbidden from that knowledge. His duty is to produce the knowledge, and what is the use to which it is put, that will be decided by somebody else, namely the rulers or the leaders or policy makers and so on. So, the scientist is simply used. Okay. Medical science, another example. Advances in medical science have created a variety of difficult situations for healthcare professionals to handle, like relation between doctors and patients, treatment of human subjects in biomedical experimentation, allocation of scarce resources, options for saving lives, transplanting organs, cloning, stem cell research. So, these are all medical research problems that are coming in, but a lot of problems. Advances in biotechnology will affect what it means to be a human being and how he live his own lives. So, this very question has been challenged by, because according to biotechnology human being is something different, not that as we understand. Okay. Implications in areas like this has got implications, it is not simply a medical problem, it has got, it implies in various, it affects in various other areas like public policy, legislation and control of resources. See, these medical problems have its repercussions in these other areas like public policy, legislation, legal, making legal things and control of resources. Then culture, it affects the culture, implications for our genetic makeup and in terms of gender, class and race, it affects cultural affairs and even our spirituality, our belief in spiritual agencies, if there is any, that is also affected by these developments in biotechnology. So, these are some of the issues that I have highlighted. Our problems are discouraging, since they exist and even multiply in spite of our increased industrial capacity, technical know-how, more education and science. So, we have not put a stop to these problems are daily, they are growing, daily they are multiplying. We need a science and technology not to lead to our destruction, but to serve mankind. This is what we need. We need a science to make us happy, to make life happy and fulfilling, not to destroy us. The need for thoughtful engagement with these problems have grown increasingly urgent, extending beyond professional communities to all members of the society. So, it is here that we have to what is called apply our decision making abilities. Okay. These are the context. For example, I suggested you some of the sample contexts where we can employ our decision making skills. What is that? Increasingly extending beyond professional communities. The decision making is not to be given only to political leaders or scientists or these policy makers only to, but to all members of society. Okay. Then all members of society must intellectually prepare to meet this burden. So, we must be equipped with, at least intellectually, we must know what is happening. Okay? Just like the scientist who does not even know what is his knowledge, his capacity, his potentiality is used. So, we should not be like that. That is the meaning of, that is the problem that I want to highlight to you. Okay. So, this is the context in which I take, I think you got some glimpse of the problem that I was highlighting. Then what is decision making? Human being is a decision maker. So, we all know that. So, what does it mean? The issue of decision making is not only for large companies and large organizations that take countless decisions, but also for daily life of ordinary human beings. We also, students, children, grown-ups, adults, old people, we all take decisions. It can range from simple and easy issues like what do you want to wear today? രാവിലെ കോളേജിൽ പോകുമ്പോൾ എന്താ സാരിയാണ് ഉടുക്കണ്ടേ, ഐ മീൻ ഇപ്പോൾ സാരിയൊന്നും ഇല്ലല്ലോ, ഏത് ഉടുപ്പാണ് ഇടണ്ടേ അല്ലേ. സോ ഇറ്റ്സ് എ ഡിസിഷൻ മേക്കിംഗ്. ടു മോർ കോംപ്ലിക്കേറ്റഡ് ഇഷ്യൂസ് ലൈക്ക് ചൂസിങ് ഗുഡ് ഫ്രണ്ട്സ്, പ്രൊഫഷൻ ഓർ പാർട്ട്ണർ. So, these are all issues affecting our lives. In every situation we have to search for questions like what, who, where, how, whom. So, these are the questions that we have to answer when we take a decision. What to take, how to take, whom to take, like that. So, these are the various questions are there when we have to take a decision, even for a simple of selecting a dress. Decision making is a process of examining the possibilities and options, comparing them and choosing a course of action. Okay? Then there is a definition. The process of decision making involves making a choice among different courses of action and entails a cycle of activities and events that begins with identification of a problem and ends with the evaluation of the implemented solutions. ഇത്രയൊക്കെയാണ് നമുക്ക് അറിയില്ലായിരുന്നു അല്ലേ? അറിയായിരുന്നോ ഡിസിഷൻ മേക്കിംഗ് ഇത്ര വലിയൊരു കാര്യമായിരുന്നെന്ന്? സി, so we all easily, very easily do make the decision. See, what is this? The process of decision making involves making a choice. You have to make one choice. You have to select one option out of among the different courses of action. So, different courses of action. സാരികൾ ഉടുപ്പുകളൊക്കെ നിരത്തി വെച്ചിരിക്കുക. So, we have to take one. Yeah. So, that is we have to take one decision, one course of action, and it entails a cycle of activities and events. So, a lot of thinking has to go into that. A cycle of things are to go into that. That begins with identification of a problem. So, first we have to identify that this is a problem that faces me, then only we can take a decision. So, I am facing a problem, so I have to think over that, then find a solution, and with the evaluation of the implemented solutions. So, whenever I take a decision that this is my choice, then I have to analyze that, I have to find out that. So, what happens when it is implemented, like that. So, it is a very serious affair. So, what are the characteristics of decision making? It is a process of making a choice from alternative courses of action. So, if there is only one course of action, there is no question of decision making, it itself is a decision. But when there are more than one option facing you, more than one alternative facing you, the question of choice is coming, the question of decision is coming. A goal is related to the problem involving two or more alternatives. A goal or objective to be achieved is chosen from alternatives. Select the best alternative as a goal. So, in every decision making there must be a goal, there must be one end that you have to find out, you have to accept, and for to accept that you have to justify why you accept that. So, that is what you have to explain. Decision making is the focal point at which plans, policies and objectives are translated into concrete actions. So, you have to plan it, you have to make policies for it, you have to find objectives for it. So, why you have selected that, why this one option is your objective, your choice, and why not the other. So, like that you have to explain it. decision is the end process, okay. Decision is the final one and preceded by deliberation and reasoning. A lot of thinking goes into that. Effective decision making helps to achieve the desired goal or objective. We choose one course of action from possible alternatives. We may use many tools, techniques and perceptions for that. So, it is in this way that we make a decision. So, it is a process of examining possibilities or options, comparing them and choosing a course of action. So, it is not so simple. You have to find out so many options and you have to compare them, find out what is more beneficial or more good, then only you can make a choice, we can make a conclusion. A judgmental process. So, decision making is a kind of judgment resulting in the selection of a course of action. In making a good decision, you must weigh the positives and negatives of each option and should favor the positive outcomes. Often what happens is decision will be the positive one, even if there is a negative option, we always favor the positive decision and we find reasons for that. Making the decisions and accepting the consequences is the only way to control, to stay in control of, for example, corporate life rather than avoid decision making. So, you can avoid decision making very well, you can avoid, but the point is that taking a decision is the better choice. Why? See, making a decision and accepting the consequences. So, when you take a decision, you have to accept the consequence of that decision. You are responsible for the consequence of that decision, and that is the only way to stay in control of the situation, control of your life for example, or control of any problem that you are facing. Otherwise, you will be escaping, you will be an escapist. So, but that option is also there, you need not take a decision, you can move away from that, but then you have no voice in that, you have no say in that problem, you lose that problem. Then different kinds of decision making we can find, I will rush through. Behavioral or psychological decision making, mainly focus on behavior of human beings. Scheduled or structured and unscheduled, or it is planned and unplanned. Impulsive or intuitive, subjective, scientific and rational. So, rational decisions are taken after a process of reflection and deliberation. Then there is one more, it is individual decision making or group decision making. Sometimes we need to take decisions in a group. So, what is that? In group decision making, whether the individual or group, three main actors be distinguished in the decision making process. That is, the decision maker, namely the analyst, the person or group responsible for pursuing the problem or situation and present alternative solutions. So, there will be a leading figure, the person. Then the second is the affected, will be all those that can be favored, harmed according to the alternative chosen. There will be an affected group of people, and there is the master of the problem who is who takes the rein in his hand, who is the controlling factor. Now, individual decision making is often quick, it is easier to make, but see group discussion decisions usually provide greater amount of information, knowledge and expertise, because many people are involved in that, many minds are taking part in that. And rational decision making has clear understanding of the situation and of all available options at hand, and there should be a general consensus on the issue. You should pick an alternative that will maximize your chance of achieving the objective. So, of all the type of decision making, rational decision making is the best one, because it has to take into consideration many alternatives, many possibilities. So, look at the problem from various perspectives, and many people are involved in that, and therefore, your decision will be more rational, more good. With so many options available today, it is hard to settle on one thing easily. So, today our problem is we have got so many options we have seen, and because of those options it is hard to settle on one issue, whether this or that, it is very difficult. Rationality in decision making. The concept of rationality or the capacity for objective and intelligent action. So, this is called rationality, is very important. A decision is said to be rational if appropriate means are chosen to achieve desired ends. According to Steiner, a rational business decision is one which effectively and efficiently assures the achievement of aims for which the means are selected. So, effective and efficient decision making is known as rational decision making. Rationality in decision making implies that the decision maker tries to maximize the values in a situation by choosing the most suitable course of action for achieving the goal. So, there is a question of values coming in, and the maximizing of values is the question in rational decision making. Rationality refers to the selection of a preferred behavior alternatives in terms of values, whereby the consequences of behavior can be evaluated. The question of value also is coming in rational decision making, which is absent in other kinds of decision making. In ordinary decision making, this question of values need not come. Okay? In rational decision making, the question of values is to be considered, and it adds strength to the rational decisions. And therefore, we have to see what is values. Values, ethics and morals. Values can be defined as those things that are important to or valued by someone like an individual or an organization. So, values are important not only for the individual, for families it is important, for groups it is important, organizations, even countries and cultures also values are important. Values are what we judge to be right. They are more than words, they are the moral, ethical and professional attributes of character. So, values are not simply words, they have got more implications, namely the moral implication is there, the ethical implication, and it is an attribute of character or the personality of a human being. Now, there is a definition, Halstead and Taylor: principles, fundamental convictions, ideals, standards or life stances which act as a general guide to behavior or as a reference point in decision making or the evaluation of belief or action. So, it is a standard, the value is considered as a standard, whatever value in general is considered as a standard for decision making. Broadly, values include public values, common good values, character attributes and so on. So, public values is values that we find in the public sphere like responsible citizens, community morale and so on. Character attributes like curiosity, innovation, self-confidence or competencies, and skills like excellence, consistency, accuracy. So, all these are considered to be personal values. Now, the emerging student needs to acquire and develop values representative of the broader community and society, as well as that of their chosen profession and fundamentally their own self. So, as student community, as growing population, you have to develop, you have to accept values of all these spheres, not only for the community values, but also for personal values and also professional values. There are values related to your profession, whatever profession you are going to, that there are values related to that, and you are expected to develop values in that particular, relevant to that particular field. See, the values are so important that it is accepted as one of the pillars of national policy of education. See, the three pillars of national curriculum are value education, key competencies like thinking, language, participation etc., and subject learning. Our national curriculum has got three pillars, they are known as the three pillars, three major points, and one of the points is value education or value inculcation, and the second one is acquiring competencies like thinking skills, language skills, participatory cooperative skills and so on, and the third only comes what is the subject learning, okay, like English or science, whatever it is. So, the values are very important. Values are fundamental in our life and lie behind all choices we make. Okay? You make so many decisions, you make choices, but behind all these choices there lies a value, whether you know it or not. For example, economic values are the one lie behind all choices we make in economic matters. Economic values are there. Now, ethical values are the ones based on which ethical choices, yes, we make ethical choices, or they are the kind of values that have to do with being good or doing the right thing. Like economic values, there are what is called ethical values, but it is not related to monetary activities, it is related to what you are doing, whether you are doing the right thing or you are doing the wrong thing. Values we associated being a good man or good human being rather than being a good doctor or a good athlete. So, we know who is a good doctor or a good athlete or a good businessman, whoever it is, but ethical values related to that human being, that particular man, and they express the rights, obligations and prohibitions absolutely basic to humanity. So, values related to the rights, duties or obligations, and there are certain prohibitions related to that, and which are absolutely basic to humanity. This is called values. Now, we come to the second point of ethics and morals. Ethics, defined as the science of human conduct or character, deals with certain principles or norms by which we judge actions to be right or wrong, virtuous or vicious. So, it also has spoken of has got norms or standards to which, with which or using which we make judgments on whether he is a good man or bad man, whether that action is a good action or bad action, it is a virtuous one or a vicious one, like that. So, these are the standards that are prescribed in the science of ethics. A part of the discipline of philosophy is not simply a collection of do's and don'ts, but a system of universal principles and values to make human social life as civilized and happy as possible. So, we do not understand that ethics is a kind of do, it says do this and do not do this, it is not like that. It is not a question of system of do's and don'ts, we cannot say like that, but what is it? A system of universal principles and values that make human social life as civilized and happy as possible, make the human life the best possible one. These are the principles that will help a human being to make his life the happiest, the wisest or the best. Ethics is concerned with actions of human beings and not to refer to the capacity or potentiality of a human being. So, here again we make a distinction between what you are doing and what you have the ability to do. You have the potentiality to do something, but you are not doing, and you are doing something. So, but ethics is specifically related to what you are doing, your actions, not that you are able to do something. That is not the question of ethics. Now, ethics aims at guiding people in the practice of right conduct or the art of living the good life. Also concerned with what we should do to change certain morally objectionable social practices for creating a better society or world. See, these are two objectives or two aims of ethics. Now, when we understand, study more about ethics, we find ethics has got a double aim. One is it guides people, it sets norms for standards of right action or wrong action or behavior. But the second one is it is concerned with what we should do to change certain morally objectionable social practices. See, in our social life, in our society, we find certain practices which cannot be followed or which are objectionable, which cannot be agreed to, and it is a science of ethics that discusses that, and it objects to that, and because these practices are impediments, obstacles to the creation of a better society. Therefore, they have to be criticized and they have to be improved upon, and this work is also taken up by ethics. So, ethics is not simply a guide to conduct, it is also a question of criticizing and improving upon the objectionable social practices which stand on the way of the human progress or social progress. Morals or morality refers to customs and practices of an individual or a group, often used in relation to one's culture, religion or ethnicity. So, a related term to ethics is morality. Often we use it interchangeably, but there is a slight difference. Doing what is right or wrong is what we mean by ethics, focused on what we ought to do rather than describing. Again, another point in noting ethics is it is not simply describing, describe the characteristics of so and so for the examination, you write, answer you write. So, it is a way of describe. Now, ethics never describes, it all prescribes, okay? We will come to that. So, focused on what you ought to do, what you have to do, what is your duty to do. So, these are the questions or these are the points to be taken up in the science of ethics. It is not, it never describes or it is not simply satisfied with the describing. Of course, description is needed, that we come later, but it is not the work proper of ethics to describe the situation, but to prescribe. Ethics is an active engagement in the pursuit of good life, a life in accordance with a coherent set of moral values, constituted by systematic reflection on human actions with the aim of improving culturally or personally accepted behavior. It attempts to bridge the gap between knowing and doing. So, this is more about ethics. So, we know so many things and we do so many things, but there is a gap between. The knowledge often it is not translated into action. So, ethics will help you to bridge the gap between what you know and what you do. So, it serves as a bridge between knowing and doing. Now, the question naturally comes, why we study ethics? Studying ethics won't make you ethical. Then philosophy people should always be ethical, isn't it? No, that never happens. Studying ethics never make you ethical, but it is a useful study, okay? Not only for philosophers, but for all. First, there are right and wrong ways of doing things, right and wrong ways of treating a sick man, of building a bridge, of driving an automobile. Example, right and wrong ways. A man may show great technical ability or skill in business or in a profession, maybe a good doctor, isn't it? We know the professional, but very stupid in his sense of values. Values, he does not care at all. So, ethics being the study of what is right and wrong should make clear why one act is better than the other. Okay? There is a good act as well as the bad act. Now, why? It is not simply making the distinction, it will give you the reasons why you say that this way of doing things is right and this way of doing things is wrong. It gives the justification for you. You can make a distinction between right and wrong with justification, with the reasons. That is the duty of ethics. Second, morality is not a matter of inheritance or convention or impulse or emotion. Okay? You cannot say that my family was great. So, that is not the question of ethics. An orderly social life must have agreements, understandings, principles or rules of procedure. Therefore, ethics seeks the most intelligent principles of behavior of the person, particular person, or the principles which will make life more wholesome. It will make your life wholesome by prescribing you this is the best way of doing things. Because of such reasons, you can make your life more happy, more wholesome. There is another reason. Guides and checks have been built upon conduct in the course of its development, like customs, conventions, legal rules, codes, as well as a sense of duty, conscience, shame and remorse, praise, blame. These are all in part of social life. In our social life, some activities are praised, some activities are not praised, isn't it? Some activities are accepted as shameful, some activities are accepted as worthy of practicing. So, some of these may be helpful to wholesome living and some are hindrances. These outward and inward checks and guides must be intelligently criticized. So, so they must be subjected to rational criticism, intelligent criticism, justifiable criticism, and this is the work of ethics. Ethics undertakes an intelligent appraisal and criticism of moral conduct and ethical systems. Whose ethical system? It may be the tribal ethics or the ethics of Africans, whosoever it may be. Ethics tries to intelligently evaluate, appraise upon the ethical principles followed and practiced. And finally, some scale of values are required to lead a satisfactory life. Questions like what values are worthwhile to pursue, why one act is better than the other. Now, ethics seeks to point out to men the true values of life. It stimulates moral sense and inspires men to join the quest for these values. So, it does not make you moral, but it induces in you the quest for making you moral, making you the best citizen. Now, we can make a distinction between normative and meta ethics. Normative ethics tells us about the principles to decide what is right and what is wrong and how we should act in a particular situation. So, briefly I will tell you, normative ethics has got a standard. It prescribes a standard of decision making. On the contrary, there is another kind of ethics or a division of ethics called meta ethics, is concerned with the philosophical analysis of moral terms. It is more gaining a matter of gaining knowledge, more knowledge. So, you analyze a concept like what is meant by duty or what is meant by honesty. So, you analyze in a with a philosophical bent of mind and you get more information, more knowledge about that concept, and that is done under meta ethics. Then we can make a distinction descriptive and prescriptive ethics I have already discussed. Then the third another one is called applied ethics, and applied ethics is acknowledged as the notion of engagement between and among multiple disciplines. Okay. So, applied ethics is, let me say, it is ethics applied in the field of different disciplines. It crosses the boundaries of discipline. It enters into medical field, engineering field, business field, or whatever field, economic field, whatever field. You know, its special focus is on issues of practical concern and controversies. So, wherever there is a controversial issue, the applied ethics comes in. Problems discussed include, so many issues are there, for example, medical science and practice, questions of race relations, political terrorism, environmental issues, any issue where there is a controversy, we can apply ethical principles. Now, deals with moral problems in a rational way. Now, we can speak of branches of applied ethics, professional ethics belonging or dealing with a particular profession. Now, bioethics dealing with ethical principles applied in the field of life sciences, environmental ethics, ethical principles applied in the field of environment, where so many ethical questions are coming up, and wherever it may be, wherever there is a moral dilemma, moral controversy is there, ethics can be applied. You know, it is here that we make ethical decision making. Now, ethical decision making refers to the process of evaluating and choosing on the basis of ethical principles, eliminating unethical options. So, we have got unethical options also. To eliminating unethical options and arriving at ethical options or ethical solutions is what is called ethical decision making. One very important point that in ethical decision making we have to make is the question of others. It is not that we alone are making the decisions. The question of the other side, namely see other, who can be the others, refer to people, animals, plants and even environment. So, the other side is also included in the question of ethical decision making. Now, we have got in the study of ethics, we have got various approaches to ethical decision making, like the rights approach advocated by Immanuel Kant, the utilitarian approach advocated by J.H. Mill, the virtue approach, the traditional ancient approach, then the justice or fairness approach advocated by Amartya Sen and all, and the common good approach advocated the English group of philosophers. So, in everything they have got their own principles of decision making. Now, one very important point I want to highlight is the Aristotlean method. Aristotle, you know, the traditional Greek philosopher, he has developed a method for ethical decision making, and it is called the method of deliberation. Deliberation means that first it has got three components in that, the method of deliberation advocated by Aristotle. First, the capacity of assuming that in value questions nobody has all the truth, and that others may have at least as much truth as we have. So, nobody owns the truth, that is the first point. Nobody is the owner of the whole truth. Everybody has element of truth, even our enemy or the opponent, they may also have some truth in them. Second, the thought that others can help us to find the way towards the truth. Here is the question of others is coming. Others can help us to find out what is the truth. Maybe sometimes we may not be able to find out or decide upon what is truth. So, the others has play a role. And the third one is most important, we must have the capacity of listening to others. This is the method of deliberation advocated by Aristotle in the ancient times, and it is still relevant in the context of ethics in decision making. We need a deliberative society in the present state of history or present state of affairs. Our society must be deliberating upon these two, keeping in mind these 2 points, that neither the Africans nor the Americans have the sole authority of truth. Even the tribal people, they might have, for example, they might also have some element of truth in them. So, we have to try to find out the second, that others, we have to recognize, we have to remember that the other may lead us to truth. The other may help us to find out the truth. And third, the one thing that we have to develop compulsorily through our education and training is that we must be able to listen to others. We must be good listeners. Not that we are all the time talking and talking and talking, we must listen to. Now, see, that is deliberative skills are not natural. That is what Aristotle says. Deliberative skills are not natural, they are cultural, they have to be developed. They have to be cultivated, they have to be developed, that is through your education. Yes, then this is what I have to say. So, the emphasis on the process of arriving at an acceptable solution in which all stakeholders have an opportunity to input. It is not one way, decision making is not an one way process. Okay? Ethics will tell you that it is a process in which all stakeholders are to be involved, they have to take part, they have to be allowed to take part in decision making. Okay. Thank you very much.